On a Chevy truck, here's every engine ground and chassis ground and what they do and where they are. Let's get in here and take a look at them. If you got sensor problems on your Vortec V8 engine, let's get in here and fix them. All right, we got a cat eye here today, Chevrolet. So this will work on 1999 to 2007 Chevy trucks, GMC Sierra, Yukon, Chevy Avalanche, you know, Chevy trucks. On these trucks, anytime you see a black wire with a white stripe going down it, that is a ground wire. More than likely, 99% of the time, that will be a ground wire on these Chevy trucks. So, you know, you take the wiring loom apart and it has some grounds dedicated running in here, and those can go from the computer to specific sensors. It has some splice packs in here. Typically don't have to dig in all of this mess, you know, to find your ground, but they can break under here. I would start with the external grounds first. Make sure you're good on those before digging any deeper into the harness. All right, so right here we got a 4.8 Vortec V8, 5.3, 6.0. This will work on any of those. First up, we're gonna go back in here. This is the most important ground back up in here. So this is the PCM ground in here, and what that is, that's to the computer. So that's the main ground for the computer. It grounds out to the top of the engine block right here, and it controls all the sensors, you know, it's what feeds back to the computer. So you gotta make sure it's good. All right, so this is the most important ground on these trucks. I'm not joking, it is the PCM ground. It goes from the computer all the way through all that wiring loom, and it connects right on top of the engine back there. Don't ask me why they did it that way. They did. You need to make sure it's not broken. Mice will chew it, it'll break, vibrations. If it does, you'll get all kinds of crazy electrical problems. Every day you start up the truck, you got a new code. Start here first if you have sensor problems on these trucks. So next up, we have one back in here. Now this one is very difficult to get to, very hard to find. It's a big bolt to the side of the engine block, so you have a couple grounds going to it. You have this little wire going to it, and then you also have this ground strap going to it, and the ground strap goes to the body. But these are important grounds, not quite as important as the other one. You don't want these to be broken. All right, I'd say this is the second most important ground on these trucks, but it is the most difficult to get to. It's on the engine block, on the driver's side, in the back, big old bolt. It's got, you know, about 2 grounds going to it, and to get back there, you gotta really dig your arm back there and turn the ratchet, you know, quarter turns. But you wanna make sure that little ground wire going down there is in good shape, and you wanna make sure that bigger ground strap going to the body is in good shape too. If you look at this wire, it goes down right there, and you can see here it is right here. So it connects to the engine block. This is a thick wire. It allows a lot of current to pass through it. For the starter motor, you know, that's mainly what it's used for, to ground the engine block directly to the battery. All right, let's get to the firewall right here. This is the driver's side, so you will notice these 2 grounds up here. So on these grounds right here, you'll notice this one right here connects to the top of the engine block right there, that really hard to get to bolt. So this one's pretty important. It grounds the engine block to the body. You need to make sure that ground strap isn't broken. That might cause you some problems if it's broken. Then we have another one right here. Now this, a lot of guys talk about this one. So this is a ground strap. It goes to the hood to ground the hood out. It doesn't do much, honestly. It isn't a source of your problems. Don't think because that's broken, that's the source of your problems, but it's mainly for the radio, believe it or not. It helps make the hood a bigger antenna for the radio antenna to bounce off of, is how it works. So it needs to be there, but it's not the source of your problems. And then we got some more grounds up here. You know, I've added grounds for car audio stuff, but as far as this goes, yeah, that's the ground I added. So we just have the hood strap ground on here. And now this one is probably the 3rd most important engine ground in the engine bay. All right, so these firewall grounds are important. They link the body to the engine. They help reduce noise to the sensor, electronic noise. So you wanna make sure those ground straps are good and they're not corroded and they're nice and tight, not broken. All right, now I'm under the truck, driver's side. So if we look up in the frame right here, the battery connects directly to the frame right here. These are really important ones too. That's how the battery connects to the frame. So this is what carries the power throughout the vehicle. These are important. If they're dirty, get in there, take them off, clean them up, and put them back on. You should be good to go. All right, last up, under the radiator. On the driver's side, we got those wires that go from the battery to the chassis. You wanna make sure those are good too. Those are a really important ground. That's what links the battery to the chassis so that the current can flow throughout the whole truck, get to all the other parts of the truck. You wanna make sure that they're not corroded or broken and they're in great shape. Here's the grounds on the driver's side frame rail right here, right next to the driver's side tire. So that top one, it's a fuel pump ground. The bottom one goes to a bunch of different stuff. They both gotta be clean. On the Chevy Avalanche, the fuel pump ground is right down the center of the truck. You know, Tahoe, Suburban's probably the same. We got a ground strap that grounds out the filler neck to the chassis. Doesn't really do much, just helps get rid of sparks, you know, when you're filling up. So on the driver's side frame rail, there are grounds on the side of it. So some of these can go to the fuel pump. You wanna check them. If they're corroded, then your fuel pump will not work properly. So under the A-pillars right here, you can have some grounds under here, you know, that control the dash and the interior stuff. I don't usually mess with these much. You know, they're inside, they don't get rusted, they're not wet, so they don't go bad very often. But you gotta take this whole sail off, not fun. And then inside the cab, there can be grounds under the A-pillars. I don't normally take them off often. They don't go bad often. They're not external. You know, they don't get corroded very often, so they're normally in pretty good shape. All right, to fix them, we just remove the ground, clean up the frame with a wire brush, clean up the connector with a wire brush, put some dielectric grease on it, bolt it back up, and we're good to go. Do this on every ground you think there's a problem. If the wire's broken, put your new ring terminal on there, just like this. Get in there with a wire brush, get the frame nice and shiny. Put some dielectric grease on there, put the ring terminal on, bolt it back on. You know, I always use dielectric grease on these grounds. That way, they don't get corroded in the future. So I bulked up the grounds on my truck because I have a car audio system, so I have much heavier duty grounds, better grounds, thicker grounds. So I got an extra one going to the body directly from the battery. Then I got another one that goes directly down to the frame right here, goes down in there. Then I have another one right here, and it grounds out directly to the engine block right here, so they can get better grounds, although it's not necessary. If you have electrical problems, you're gonna fix what you got, because if you go start adding grounds everywhere, you're gonna cause more trouble for yourself. You need to fix the wires that are damaged or broken first. All right, now that we know all our ground wires are good, let's take a look at the wiring harness. Let's take a look at this wiring harness right here. We got a bunch of wires coming out of here, but here's a connector right here, and you'll notice we have a black and white stripe, and we got a brown wire, and that black and white stripe is gonna be your ground on this circuit, whatever that is. I think it's like a light bulb or something. And then you can see in this loom, we have some splice packs in here, like I said, but there are plenty of dedicated grounds running throughout here. So do not take yours apart unless you absolutely have to, but it's not usually necessary. You can see we got a ground right there running in the loom, so that goes to a dedicated sensor. Here's a really good example. Here's the computer connector right here. You see all those black and white stripes? I know for a fact those are all grounds, one after another. They go right into the top of the computer. So you can see some of them that go to sensors, they have their own dedicated ground. So like crankshaft position sensor needs a ground, it needs power, and then it needs like a reference, it needs another wire. So a light bulb, needs a ground or whatever. So the computer has dedicated grounds going back to it for certain sensors, just like that. They don't always ground out to the chassis. Here we go right here. We have the coil pack harness, that black wire there, that's your ground. But it doesn't have a white line on it, it's just a solid black wire, and that can cause a lot of guys a lot of problems, but if you know, you know, and this one is running in the harness. All right, there you go. There's all the engine block grounds, 99 to 2007. Chevy Vortec V8, 4.8, 5.3, 6.0. Now you know where they are. Make sure they're not broken. Make sure they're not corroded. If they are, get in there, fix them, or clean them up. Get those grounds hooked back up, and you'll be good to go. You'll know your grounds aren't the problem. So if you still have sensor problems after this, it's a sensor problem and not a ground. I'll check you on the next video. Don't forget, drop me a huge thumbs up down below. Don't forget to subscribe down below for more Chevy truck tip videos in the future. Later.